So I made these cookies for the first time a week ago and they were amazing and delicious. So I'm gonna make them again. My husband and I already finished the first batch, so I'm making them again. This is my very used, very loved copy of The Joy of Cooking. This is like the third copy I've ever had because I use this so much it falls apart. But I'm making these molasses cookies Moldow. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this person's name correctly, but anyway, it came from one of the publishers of The Joy of Cooking, and it is the best molasses gingery cookie that I have ever had. And I'm pretty sure it is now going to be my go-to holiday molasses ginger cookie. So you need butter. This is 1.5 sticks of butter, a cup of packed brown sugar, teaspoon of baking soda, a 1/4 cup of molasses. This is really what makes them good. Some salt, warming spices, cinnamon, ginger, and cloves. The only alteration I'm making is I am switching the quantities of ginger and cinnamon. In the recipe it's like 2 parts cinnamon, 1 part ginger. I'm making it 2 parts ginger, 1 part cinnamon, or I might go 2 and 2. I think I did that last time I made it. Some sugar to roll the cookies in, and of course flour. So let's soften this butter and then we'll come back. So I've just microwaved this butter on low for about 30 seconds to a minute. Part of it got a little melted and most of it's just soft. It's okay if part of it gets a little melted. That will sort itself out. I'm just beating this with a mighty fork. You do not need special equipment to make these cookies. I'm going to cream it with the cup of packed brown sugar. The recipe said brown sugar or white sugar, but I did brown sugar last time and it was delicious, so I'm doing brown sugar again. So, you know, cream it together till it's smooth and kind of looks fluffy and luscious and no like lumps of butter remain. And this is actually the point at which I like to add the spices and the salt and the baking soda and all of that. I find it's just easier to combine it now at this stage when you don't have to worry about over mixing than after you've added the flour. And I hate, if you're new to this channel, you might not know this, but I hate, whenever I'm making cakes or cookies, I hate using separate bowls, like to combine the wet and the dry. Sometimes you have to for certain kinds of recipes, but like if I can avoid having another dirty bowl to clean, I will avoid it. So I'm mixing this all just in one bowl. So anyway, a teaspoon of baking soda, half a teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, and as I mentioned before, this is where I'm going to deviate a little. Instead of 1 teaspoon of ginger, I'm going to do 2. Equal parts ginger and cinnamon. I just like them to be gingerier. I feel that also makes it more Christmassy. And 1 teaspoon of ground cloves. And I had to double check that just now because it seemed like an awful lot of cloves. Usually one does not put that many cloves in something, but indeed, it is 1 teaspoon of cloves. So 1 teaspoon of cloves. I'm just going to give this a little beating just to combine. A 1/4 cup of molasses. I'm going to use my impeccably clean finger to get the rest of it out of this cup. If this were a cake, like whenever I make gingerbread, I usually just eyeball the molasses because I hate measuring molasses. I don't have one of those push cups. I don't know, I have a feeling push cups come with their own problems as well. I'm always very wary of gimmicky kitchen gadgets. But with cookies, you have to be a little more precise on these amounts, so I measure it for this recipe. Listen to me talking like I know what I'm doing. This is my 2nd time ever making this recipe, by the way. It just came out perfect the first time I made it, so I'm hoping it'll come out perfect again this time. All right, and then an egg. Something I learned from Great British Bake Off, just add a tiny bit of flour when you add an egg to your butter sugar mixture. Helps prevent it from curdling. Stabilizes things. Okay, then all we need to add now is 2 cups of all-purpose flour. So 2 cups like minus the spoonful that I added just now. And I don't carefully level off my flour, but I saw Claire the dessert person do the same thing and talk about how she doesn't really level off her flour either, so I don't feel bad about it anymore. And at this point I like to switch over to a mighty spoon. And I also like to splash flour out of the bowl as I stir it, just to keep myself humble. And it'll look like there's too much flour at first, but just keep mixing it patiently until everything's incorporated. Incidentally, when I made the half recipe of this, I used just an egg yolk instead of the whole egg. And everything else I just, it was pretty easy to divide in half. And that worked out really super well. So if you don't want to make a giant recipe, if it's like just you, then you can easily have this recipe and just use a yolk instead of a whole egg. Do not want to overmix. Mix it until it just comes together and there's no more flour bits left over. And the joy of cooking says in its instructions, and it is right, the dough will be very soft. Look how soft and sticky it is. We cannot actually turn this into cookies yet. This is going to be chilled in the fridge for 2 hours. You could probably chill it overnight too if you wanted to like make the dough ahead. But it's a super easy dough to make. I don't know why you'd have to do that. So I'm going to chill this in the fridge for 2 hours before I turn it into cookies. Okay, it has been about 1 hour and 45 minutes since I put the dough in the fridge, and here's my lovely stained silpat. It's not dirty, it is stained from regular use. That is what happens when you're a home cook and not a TV cook. Anyway, I've preheated the oven to about 325. It's supposed to be 350, but real talk, apartment ovens and even home ovens, they aren't always consistently correct. And I've noticed that recently this oven has started running a little hot, so I do it a little lower than it's supposed to be. And I have my 1-inch cookie scoop ready to go. Chilled dough. So if you have made snickerdoodles before, this is a similar process. You basically take a scoop, and the reason why you want to use a scoop is just so that your cookies are all uniformly the same size, and then they'll cook at the same rate. And I mean, they also then look really nice, but cooking at the same rate is important. So I roll it into a ball. It's a beautiful ball. This is partly why you really need to chill it first. Otherwise, like if I attempted to do this without chilling it, it would be sticky and messy. And then this is just my sugar bowl that I use for tea, and I just plop it in. And again, this is exactly what you would do if you were making snickerdoodles. You just roll it into a ball and then you coat it in sugar, and then I put it on the cookie sheet, which you can't see because it's out of frame. Here, you put it on the cookie sheet. Anyway, you want to space these cookies 2 inches apart, and I think that means I fit about 12 on this particular cookie sheet. And you have to bake them 1 sheet at a time. Let's do another one. Ooh, so I scrape it against, which you can't see because it's out of focus, against the edge of the bowl. Squeeze it. Roll it. And beautiful. When I made this half recipe last time, it was 1 whole sheet of cookies, because it made like 16, 17, it made 17 cookies. And then I did in a tiny cookie sheet, like a batch of 5 cookies, and they all melted together into super cookie. It still worked okay. So yeah, that's why you want to leave about 2 inches. This knuckle on my finger is 1.5 inches, so I figure that knuckle plus a little bit more is about what I need to do. So I'm going to fill the rest of this sheet and then we'll come back to you. Alright, there is my dozen cookies ready to go. You may be like, oh, these don't look like cookies, they're all round. But they are going to flatten and spread out and turn into nice round cookies while they are in the 350-degree oven for 8 minutes. I'm going to check them after 6. I'm actually going to check them after 4 minutes, and I'm going to rotate the pan because ovens have hot spots. And then I'm going to check them again after it's been like 7 minutes total. Woo! And as I'm moving the pan, the cookies all moved because I was holding a camera. Okay. There we go. Alright, the cookies have been in for like 3 minutes and 45 seconds. And as you can see, they are already starting to flatten out. And I'm just rotating the pan because ovens have hot spots. If I did not rotate the pan, some of these cookies would be more done than others, so. Okay, it has been 3 minutes, so about 7 minutes total of cooking, and I'm going to check on them because nothing makes me sadder than overbaked cookies. These are not as flat as my first batch of cookies were. I think they flatten a little bit as they cool. Let me see. Could be because I used a whole egg instead of just an egg yolk. So these are still a little soft and a little gooey on the inside, and sometimes you want that, but I do think these could do with another like minute. And behold their molassesy, spicy, crackly cookie goodness. Okay, but we're not done yet. These need to sit on the pan for a minute or two to firm up a little bit. They are currently on a wire rack, which you can't see because it's covering the wire rack. After they have firmed up a bit, I'm going to transfer them to the wire rack, and then I need to do this 2 more times because this recipe makes 3 dozen cookies total. Okay, it's been a couple minutes, so I'm going to transfer these. See, there was a wire rack under it. If I had tried to transfer these right out of the oven, these cookies would have bent as I was trying to transfer them to the wire rack, but now as you can see, they're pretty stiff. And this cookie is pretty much perfect texture-wise. It's like all of the wonderful texture-y things that people love about cookies. It's soft and chewy and crispy. And like it has those delightful little craggy things in the top. And they did, as I suspected, they did flatten a little bit as they were resting. But I think it's just the egg white that's making this batch puffier than my last batch, which could be a good thing. We'll see. Now I'm gonna make 2 more batches. Okay, they are all done and I can't wait to try one. I've got 3, which is a pretty good serving, and a nice hot cup of chai. So as you can see, they are crispy on the outside, soft and chewy on the inside. Seriously, this is the best spiced molasses cookie I've had. I think I prefer them a little bit with the denser version. So check out the video description. I have a recipe written out there, and the version I'll have there will have notes about how to make them fluffier or how to make them chewier. Anyway, Merry Christmas if you celebrate, and I really do hope you try out these cookies.